Welcome to another episode of the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing. This week, the Secretary of Tourism, Culture and Transportation, Nadine Stewart-Phillips, addresses the media.
I would first off like to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the persons who played a role in ensuring Carnival 2018 was successfully executed. The various stakeholders and members of the public for your support and patronage towards all the major Carnival events hosted here on the island. I was very pleased with the overall execution of Carnival 2018, from the events that preceded Carnival Monday and Tuesday to the colorful displays presented by the various mass bands. And I want to make special mention of Carnival Saturday and Sunday, where the children took center stage, and on both days their energy levels remained high as they danced and moved on and off stage, presenting their various costumes. And I think that is very commendable on the part of the band leaders, their parents and the kids themselves. It was very evident that a lot of work went into those creations that lit up the streets. The costumes, even on taking closer looks, were very well made and accessorized. And I really want to commend all the band leaders and the mass players for keeping Tobago's Carnival at such a high quality and ensuring the festival remains alive. The board of the Festivals Commission, headed by Mr. George Leacock, the staff at the Festival Commission, the Carnival Committee as well, I extend sincere thanks for going beyond the call of duty to ensure that we staged a successful Carnival here in Tobago. Of notable mention is the cleanup efforts, after Carnival cleanup efforts. CPEP Scarborough and the Division of Works, they did ensure timely cleanups of all the various spaces, and I think that is very commendable as well on the part of the Division of Community Development, Enterprise Development and Labour, of which CPEP falls, and the Division of Infrastructure, Quarries and the Environment. Our various interest groups that over the years continue to play a role in Carnival, Pantrinbago, Tuco, the numerous Calypso tents. We had over 10 tents in Tobago this year. All the Carnival band leaders for your unwavering support and participation during the Carnival season here in Tobago. And I want to make special mention to the steel pan groups that journeyed to Trinidad for both the semi-finals and the finals. Even though the travel circumstances between the islands were not the best, they persevered and ensured that they played their hearts and souls out. And special commendation must be given to Petrotrin Cats and Drummers for placing second, and NLCB Buccaneers for placing fourth in the medium steel band category, as well as Uptown Fascinators, our boys Tobago Panthers, T&Tech New Eastside Dimension, and Alpha Pan Pioneers for their presentations in the small band category at the National Panorama Finals. You all did well, and as Secretary, I urge you to continue being committed and dedicated to improving the art form through steel pan. As well, our very own Devon Stewart scored what we would call a hat-trick at the National Panorama Finals, where as a ranger both his bands took first place in the medium and large categories, and I would like to extend congratulations to Devon as well. Now, in the lead up to the actual Carnival days, I took some time along with the chairman of the Festival Commission to visit mass camps here in Tobago. And I must say that I was truly impressed. And as I mentioned before, with the kind of work and effort that went into the creation and design of the costumes. I know there were a lot of late nights and early mornings, and so special commendations again to to the mass band leaders. I applaud your contribution and say well done, even as you continue to educate us through your artistic creations. On the eastern end of Tobago, the Windward Carnival Committee, headed by Miss Marissa Williams, must be congratulated as well for the excellent work done in Roxborough and ensuring that Carnival in Windward Tobago was just as impacting as it was in Scarborough and Crown Point. There were a number of events which saw large turnouts and support from the public, and that started with the Windward Carnival Junior Extravaganza that attracted primary schools in Tobago East. We then had the Windward Afro Queen Show and Calypso competition. We had as well the Kiddies Carnival on Carnival Sunday in Roxborough, the Juve celebrations on Carnival Monday, and Parade of Bands and Monday Night Mass on Carnival Monday happening in Roxborough. In the competitive arena of the festival, I would like to congratulate the various participants and the well-deserved champions in the various events for the season. Year after year, they continue to raise the bar on the level of excellence represented in all aspects of performance in Tobago. And Mr. Leacock will speak further and provide details in relation to the results in the various categories. Last but not least, I want to thank the members of the Protective Services, TEMA, and all other entities who played a major role in ensuring that we had what I would term a safe carnival. The police and army were out in their numbers on all days. We have not received any major reports from the police of violence or the likes during the season, and we can therefore conclude based on preliminary information that Tobago had a safe Carnival. As it relates to domestic transportation issues, ladies and gentlemen, as you may be aware, during the Carnival season, the TNT Express was out of operation, which resulted in no sailing to Tobago via the fast ferry. And it would be remiss of me if I did not express my gratitude to Caribbean Airlines for responding to the call to commute persons to and from the island. The collaboration between Caribbean Airlines and the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago was indeed commendable, and this kind of cooperation should not go unnoticed. Caribbean Airlines did also just yesterday issue a press release outlining that for the period February 14th to 16th, that's Wednesday to Friday, they have increased to 28 flights, providing 2,764 seats to facilitate inter-island travelers that are booked on the ferry. They did indicate that priority will be given to passengers disrupted by the ferry cancellations, even as we await final word on the resumption of the TNT Express to the inter-island route.
I have some general comments. I have some comments about some issues that were controversial, and maybe a little review of one or two things. It is not even too early to start pointing forward. In the first instance, I want to start by thanking the service providers, the people who provide most of the services that we use for Carnival. And I point them out first because we were operating for Carnival with a $3 million cut in our budget. And the majority of that cut was absorbed by service providers. We really cut to the bone and removed a lot of the extra this and that in order to preserve, in particular, prize monies for interest groups. And I think that should be noted. The Secretary has mentioned Works and their group. So I'm the guilty party now. I thought I took out everything out of my pocket. Last week it was that late. Yes. Yeah. I swear I thought I took out everything out of my pocket. All right. And I mentioned the Secretary for, was you last time, so you don't even laugh. I want to thank the Secretary for Works and his crew for the outstanding work like the Secretary already has. I also want to thank the Administrator and the people in finance for making funds immediately available for the Festival Commission. It means that we are in a position to pay all bills and prices almost immediately, and the process will only be slowed by the need to verify documents. There's something that I would say later on that would explain to you why we really need to verify. We continue to be in contact. I was in contact this morning with Mr. McKenna. This is Smokey McKenna, whose wife was injured for Kiddies Carnival. As you are already aware, she stepped on a grate at the back of the port, and she had to be hospitalized. Well, she didn't stay in the hospital. She went to the hospital. She was treated and is home. She's still under doctor's care. She returns to the hospital for follow-up treatment on Friday. I spoke to her via telephone yesterday, and she is in some pain, admittedly, but she would be better. The security services and special and first responders are already mentioned. The Carnival interest groups, who represent the makers of Carnival, the individual calypsonians, and the mass players. Our congratulations, of course, to this. Mass players and the panists. Several winners emerged over the season, in every case as a result of their dedication to their craft, hard and long hours, and they too are congratulated and will soon be rewarded for their efforts. There were some controversial issues. The THA Pan Champs 2018 was delayed for 2 days, but the matter was resolved by the astute intervention of the Chief Secretary. We do not expect this to be the end of controversy in Carnival, but all of the players must be complimented for their roles in bringing the matter to a swift conclusion, and second to that, abiding to the terms of the agreement. As you would recall, we agreed to giving the Steel Band Association the right to move some monies around within the confines of the budget that they were already allocated, and they agreed in return to guarantee that steel bands would appear on the road on Carnival Day, and they did. On the question of Calypso tents, there was also a little bit of a blurb as far as Calypso tents were concerned. Let me advise that Calypso tents were never funded by the Carnival Committee or the Festivals Commission. They were always funded by the Division of Culture outside of the funding for Carnival. And the Executive Committee accepted the recommendation of the Secretary that funding be provided again this year to those entities from the Division of Culture, and checks were prepared and have already been handed out to those persons who run Calypso tents. The Festivals Commission is a body that is dedicated to managing events, those issues that touch on development, training, and all of that, like Calypso tents, are properly the responsibility of the Department of Culture. I think I said division earlier, the Department of Culture, and that department fulfilled their responsibility in that area. The judging of Calypso and Pan is managed totally by the respective interest groups. In the case of Mass, where there has been controversy between the Tobago Band Leaders Association and the National Carnival Band Leaders Association, the Festival Commission appoints a judges coordinator who oversees training, recruitment, and rostering of judges for the various events. A head judge is appointed for each event. The entire operation is outside of the influence of the Tobago Festivals Commission and the Tobago's Carnival Committee. Starting in 2017, the requirement that the manager or Carnival Committee chairman review results before publication was refused by this chairman. This chairman refused to review results after they came from the head judge. That refusal in 2017, if you recall, led to a delay in the release of results for maybe the first day of Carnival. Because the staff didn't believe me when I said that I was not interested and I was not going to sign off to the results, give them to the media. And when they realized I was not going to do it at all, is when it happened. In 2018, a 2-day workshop for judges was hosted by the Commission, facilitated by experts from both Trinidad and Tobago. And all judges who were rostered to judge the mass element were required to attend those workshops. One of the policy positions that the Festivals Commission, in fact, the only policy position that the Festival Commission asked of the judges, is that people be named judge rather than be named judge at Roxborough Courtyard for Juve or judge at Market Square for Monday Night Mass. And that way, persons would have been rostered outside of their control and sent to locations. Transportation was provided to judge. The unfortunate reality of that is that there were some individuals who, after finding out that they didn't get to judge at their favorite place, chose not to show up, and replacements had to be put in place. It's sort of a simple principle. Every time you have a competitive situation, some people would walk away feeling that the judge didn't see things their way or the judge didn't see the things the other way. And if you put the same judge in the same place every year, year after year, judging a particular competition, those negative feelings necessarily build up, and people start to feel it's more than just the judge's opinion that's operating not in their favor. And it's one of the things that we probably have to stick to, and we'll of course have to take note of those persons who did not make themselves available at the times and places and so on where they were supposed to, and ensure that there are replacements in the future. On the question of participating in events by board and committee members, the current chairman, that would be me, has always publicly advocated participation in Carnival by board members, committee members, and even staff members during periods when they're not on duty or when other arrangements can be made. There's no real point in saying that the judging system is independent and outside of the influence of the board or the Carnival committee. If you are going to then not participate and pretend that you are not participating so you don't influence the outcome. If judges are unable to look at a performance regardless of the participant and come to a fair decision, they should not be judges. Keen observers at Roxborough for the Afro Queen show would realize that the results were taken from the chief judge by a police officer, and that officer held the results in her custody until they were delivered to the master of ceremonies for announcements. That means that members of the Carnival Committee and the Festivals Commission knew the Carnival results in every case at the very same time that you in the media, the members of the public, or anybody who was attending at any function knew the results. We are not involved in any way in the process of judging. Mass continues to be a special case. Despite several attempts, official and unofficial, over the years, the Carnival Committee has continued to play a disproportionate role in the management of mass. This is because the factions cannot seem to get together. The Tobago Carnival Committee is looking towards insisting that there be some kind of merger, interim committee, or something of the like that would allow for the mass event to be managed, at least in part, by the mass players themselves going forward, rather than it being a responsibility of the committee, as opposed to what happens with Pan and what happens with Calypso. To continue along that trend, the Festival Commission is also concerned that for the most part, interest groups are totally dependent on the THA for funding. There's no sponsorship, there is no fundraising. One wonders, for example, that entities who have been given theater performance halls would not do a show in support of their organization so that they can make some contribution to the substantial amount of funds that are outlaid on an annual basis. I want to mention maybe one other issue that was of concern to the Commission, and I'm sure that most people knowing me know that I don't at all, well, two issues stray away from issues that may be controversial. One of them is that in a show that was designed for children, there were performances by students that were in some cases borderline obscene, and in other cases featured students making disrespectful comments about public officials. And I want to make a clear distinction between picking even of adults that are or that would be suitable for children, and downright, in fact, disrespectful is one of the words I try not to use because it's an emotional word that people sort of throw around when they're trying to demonize a person or a process. But I can find no other term to suggest, and I think that teachers really have to be careful because the old adage, if even you are not respectful of the person, be respectful of the office that the person holds. And I say again, there is a huge difference, which we all know, between picking, funny statements and all of that, and matters that go beyond the pale. If I go a sort of item by item quick run through and maybe give you one sentence on each, you'll have an idea of what we're thinking. If you went to Market Square, you'd realize that the unsightly look of the market was covered with a mural. It was painted on Saturday and Sunday by 3 young Tobago artists. It's something that we hope grows and expands. It's something that we hope would attract sponsorship in the future and would improve in all of our carnival areas the appearance of the general area on carnival days. It's a little difficult to have people costuming themselves nicely and so on, and then you put them on a stage or even on the streets and you realize it's boarding up and kind of looking like people expecting riots and a battle zone and that kind of thing. So we try to soften that a little bit, and it's something we hope we can expand on. It's not very expensive in the first place, but that is something that maybe sponsors and so on will be attracted to in the future. With regard to the interdepartment competition, it has always been our objective to hand that competition to a committee of individuals representing the various departments. And we went maybe a few steps along the road in that direction, and we expect to continue that, particularly with the Festival Commission being appointed year-round, giving us the ability to pull those people out even earlier to start to get their show on the road. We are excited about that possibility. The THA Pan Champs we are not in a position to really evaluate absolutely, because we think that the delay and the bad weather had something to do with the relatively low turnout. But we are still in the business maybe of looking at a venue adjustment or shift to make the area more friendly to spectators. When everything operates on the same level, the bands are on the ground, the spectators are on the ground, people continue to complain of not being able to see properly from in the back and so on. Kings, queens, and individuals. Two things happened. I think last year when we were scrunting for participants, not literally, everybody got to the final. This year, everybody got to the final, and we are certain that there are one or two players who do need to do a little bit of more work on their costumes to be in the final. So you'll probably see a return to having a semi-final of some sort, or judging in the mass camp next year, so that people qualify to participate on the street. We're probably also looking at changing the stage around a little bit to have the masqueraders set up in the area of the taxi stand and come straight down Carrington Street, rather than coming down Garden Side Street, where you realize we had at least one costume that was too huge to turn and so on Garden Side Street. The Calypso competition, I think, benefited from the location that was in the middle of Scarborough. And we had a significantly better turnout, and it also benefited from us being able to join with the soca competition. The soca competition was thought to be maybe a more than worthwhile effort by all. It embraces the younger participants in the Calypso soca art form. Having two on the same night made for a full show, a full night of activities and all of that. We did work along with the Men of Exile in executing the show, and that full evaluation would come when we sit with them thereafter. We, however, took the responsibility for the prizes in particular, so that, unlike what may have happened in the past, the performers will receive their prize monies. The Junior Pan Champs took place again at Signal Hill. Unfortunately, Signal Hill weren't able to defend on home turf, but it's one of the shows that we were particularly pleased with, because there were school children out and participating, and we are probably going to open it up for bids from other schools who want to host next year. So we move to another location and keep rotating in that fashion. The Junior Calypso Monarch competition needs to find, or we need to find it a proper place on the calendar. It keeps popping up, down, and around, depending on what's happening in Trinidad and how many people qualify for Trinidad. People from Tobago qualify for Trinidad, and the date that we were given for it turned out to be the same day that the people from Tobago who qualified had to go to Trinidad. So we had to move the date. You don't want to be moving dates of events at all. And there probably has to be a higher level of cooperation at the level of us, the NCC, TUCO nationally, and the steel bands, because you recall too, the TUCO national judging did clash with the steel bands at Black Rock. Not only at Black Rock, but there were steel bands being judged. On the same night, there was TUCO national judging in Tobago, and you can't really tear yourself between the two.
Thank you for staying with us for the Tobago House of Assembly's Post-Executive Council Media Briefing for the week ending February 17th, 2018.